I didn't shoot my wife or my son anytime, ever.
Did you take this gun or any gun like it and shoot your son Paul in the chest in the feed room at your property off Moselle Road?
No, I did not.
Mr. Murdaugh, did you take this gun or any gun like it and blow your son's brains out on June 7th or any day?
I did not.
Mr. Murdaugh, you take a 300 blackout, such as this, and fire it into your wife Maggie's leg, torso, or any part of her body?
No, I did not.
If you believe your dad's innocent, your mom and your brother's killer is out there somewhere.
That's what I believe.
Would he get someone else to do it?
No, ma'am. I don't think that he could be affiliated with endangering my mother and brother. I mean, we've been here for a while now, and that's been my stance.
Imagine calling 911, screaming that you've just found your wife and son brutally murdered on your property. Now imagine that 3 years later, you're convicted of killing them both. This is the story of Alex Murdaugh, a man from one of South Carolina's most powerful legal families, who seemed to have it all: wealth, influence, and respect. But beneath the surface lay a web of lies, theft, and murder so twisted that it would shock the entire nation. This is the story of how a dynasty built over a century came crashing down in the most spectacular and violent way possible. This is the Murdaugh family murders. This case takes place in South Carolina's Low Country, a region of sprawling estates, Spanish moss hanging from ancient oak trees, and families whose names carry weight across generations. For nearly a century, one name stood above all others in this corner of South Carolina: Murdaugh. The Murdaugh family wasn't just wealthy or well-connected. They were the law itself in Hampton County. For 3 generations spanning over 85 years, a Murdaugh served as the elected solicitor, which is essentially the head prosecutor for the region. They decided who got charged with crimes and who walked free. They were untouchable, or so everyone thought. At the center of our story is Richard Alexander Murdaugh, known to everyone as Alex. Born in 1968, Alex was the eldest son and heir to this legal empire. He grew up in privilege, attending the best schools and eventually following in his father's footsteps to law school. By all outward appearances, Alex had a golden life. He married his college sweetheart, Margaret Kennedy Branch, known as Maggie. She was beautiful, warm, and came from a good family herself. Together they had 2 sons, Richard Jr., called Buster, and Paul. The family lived on a sprawling 1,700-acre hunting estate called Moselle, located in Colleton County. This wasn't just a home, it was a kingdom. The property had woods, ponds, a main house, and several outbuildings. It was the kind of place where Southern aristocracy lived and entertained. Alex worked at the family law firm Peters, Murdaugh, Parker, Eltsroth, and Dietrich, known as PMPD. The firm was a powerhouse in South Carolina, handling major personal injury cases and wrongful death lawsuits. Alex was a partner and a successful attorney, or at least that's what everyone believed. He was charismatic, friendly, and could work a room like a politician. People trusted him. That trust would prove to be catastrophic. But to understand how everything fell apart, we need to go back to February 24, 2019. That night, Paul Murdaugh, who was 19 years old at the time, was driving a boat with several friends after a night of heavy drinking. Paul was drunk, belligerent, and driving recklessly on the waterways near Beaufort, South Carolina. Just after 2 a.m., the boat slammed into a bridge piling at full speed. The impact was devastating. One of the passengers, 19-year-old Mallory Beach, was thrown from the boat into the cold, dark water. Her friends frantically searched for her, screaming her name into the night, but Mallory was gone. Her body wouldn't be found for 7 days, discovered washed up on shore several miles away. In the aftermath of the crash, something unusual happened. Witnesses reported that the Murdaugh family immediately began working to control the narrative. There was confusion about who was actually driving the boat, with some suggesting the family tried to pin it on someone else. Paul was eventually charged with 3 felony counts of boating under the influence causing death, but many in the community whispered that any other person would have faced harsher consequences immediately. The Murdaugh name, it seemed, still carried protective power. Mallory Beach's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Alex Murdaugh, seeking accountability and justice for their daughter. Then came June 7, 2021, the night that would change everything forever. At approximately 10:07 p.m., Alex Murdaugh called 911 from his Moselle property. His voice on that call was frantic, desperate, and terrified. He told the dispatcher that he had just returned home to find his wife Maggie, age 52, and his son Paul, now 22, shot to death near the dog kennels on the property. When first responders arrived, they found a horrific scene. Maggie had been shot multiple times with an assault rifle, while Paul had been killed with a shotgun at close range. His head and body had sustained catastrophic injuries. Both were already dead. There was nothing anyone could do. The investigation immediately focused on the property and the family. Who would want to kill Maggie and Paul Murdaugh? The initial theory that gained traction was revenge. Paul was still facing those criminal charges for the boat crash that killed Mallory Beach. Had someone from Mallory's family or circle of friends taken justice into their own hands? Or was it someone Paul had angered during one of his drunken episodes? He had a reputation for being aggressive and entitled when intoxicated. But as investigators dug deeper, another possibility emerged, one that seemed almost unthinkable. What if Alex himself was responsible? At first the idea seemed absurd. Why would a man murder his own wife and son? Alex appeared devastated in the days following the murders. He attended their funerals, wept openly, and spoke of his grief. But then, just 3 months later in September 2021, something bizarre happened that would crack Alex's carefully constructed facade wide open. On September 4th, Alex called 911 again, this time reporting that he had been shot in the head while changing a tire on a rural road in Hampton County. He claimed that a stranger in a passing truck had shot him. Alex survived with what he described as a superficial wound, and the story made headlines. The Murdaugh family, it seemed, was cursed or under attack. But within days, the truth emerged, and it was stranger than anyone imagined. Alex hadn't been the victim of a random shooting at all. He had orchestrated the entire thing. Alex had hired a man named Curtis Edward Smith, a former client and distant acquaintance, to kill him. Yes, you heard that right. Alex wanted Curtis to shoot him in the head so that his surviving son, Buster, could collect a $10 million life insurance policy. The plan failed when Curtis only grazed Alex's head, either intentionally or by poor aim. When this scheme unraveled, Alex admitted to the plan, and Curtis was arrested and charged with assisted suicide and assault. But the question remained, why would a successful attorney need $10 million so desperately that he'd stage his own murder? The answer came crashing down like a tidal wave. Alex Murdaugh had been stealing money for years, maybe decades. As investigators combed through his finances and the law firm's records, they discovered a staggering pattern of theft and fraud. Alex had been embezzling millions of dollars from his own law firm and from his clients, many of whom were vulnerable people who had hired him to represent them in personal injury cases. These were people who had been catastrophically injured or lost loved ones, and Alex had stolen their settlement money. He created fake bank accounts, forged documents, and manipulated financial records. The total amount stolen was eventually estimated to be nearly $9 million, though some believe it was even higher. One particularly heartbreaking case involved Gloria Satterfield, the Murdaugh family's longtime housekeeper and nanny. In February 2018, Gloria died after what was reported as a trip-and-fall accident at the Murdaugh home. Alex encouraged Gloria's sons to sue him for wrongful death, promising he would help them get a settlement from his insurance company. He recommended a lawyer who worked with Alex to secure a $4.3 million settlement. But Gloria's sons never saw a penny of that money. Alex and the attorney had stolen it all. The sons didn't even know a settlement had been reached until years later when the whole scheme was exposed. Alex had literally stolen from the children of a woman who had loved and cared for his own children. The law firm, PMPD, confronted Alex about the missing money in September 2021, just days before his fake roadside shooting. They fired him immediately, and the South Carolina Bar Association suspended his law license. Alex checked himself into rehab, claiming he had a decades-long opioid addiction that fueled his behavior. He painted himself as a victim of addiction, not a calculating thief and potential murderer. But investigators weren't buying it. They now had a clear motive for why Alex might have killed Maggie and Paul. The boat crash lawsuit filed by Mallory Beach's family was forcing Alex's finances into the open. Depositions and financial disclosures were scheduled. His years of theft were about to be exposed. Maggie had also reportedly become suspicious of their financial situation and may have been preparing to divorce him, which would have required full financial disclosure. Paul's ongoing legal troubles were bleeding money for lawyers and settlements. Everything was closing in on Alex Murdaugh, and he needed a way out. In July 2022, almost exactly 1 year after the murders, Alex Murdaugh was indicted on 2 counts of murder for the deaths of Maggie and Paul. He was also charged with 2 counts of possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime. Over the following months, additional charges piled up: financial fraud, money laundering, tax evasion, and more. By the time his murder trial began in January 2023, Alex faced over 100 criminal charges. The trial was a media sensation, broadcast live and watched by millions. It had everything: wealth, power, murder, betrayal, and the fall of a dynasty. The prosecution painted a clear picture of a man who was desperate, cornered, and willing to do anything to protect his secrets and his lifestyle. They presented evidence showing that Alex was at the kennels with Maggie and Paul just minutes before they were killed, directly contradicting his original statement to police that he hadn't been near the kennels that evening. A video taken from Paul's phone at 8:44 p.m. captured Alex's voice in the background, placing him at the murder scene. Cell phone data showed movement and activity on Alex's phone that was inconsistent with his story of finding the bodies. The prosecution argued that Alex killed his wife and son because they were liabilities. The boat crash case was forcing financial scrutiny. Maggie may have been ready to leave him. Paul's legal troubles were expensive and ongoing. In Alex's twisted logic, their deaths would buy him sympathy, delay legal proceedings, and possibly even make him seem like a victim rather than a perpetrator. The timeline was damning. Maggie and Paul were killed around 8:50 p.m. Alex's phone showed he left the property shortly after and visited his mother, who had dementia, creating an alibi. He then discovered the bodies when he returned around 10 p.m. and called 911. The defense argued that Alex was a loving father and husband who would never harm his family. They suggested that the real killer was someone connected to the boat crash seeking revenge, and that Alex was being railroaded because of his financial crimes. They pointed out that the murder weapons were never found and that there was no blood or DNA evidence directly linking Alex to the killings. But the evidence was overwhelming. Alex had lied repeatedly to investigators. His financial crimes showed a pattern of deceit and manipulation. And the timeline, the cell phone data, and the forensic evidence all pointed to him. Perhaps the most dramatic moment of the trial came when Alex himself took the stand in his own defense. 4 hours he testified, admitting to his financial crimes and his lies to police, but adamantly denying that he killed his wife and son. He wept on the stand, his voice breaking as he described finding their bodies. But under cross-examination, the prosecution dismantled his credibility piece by piece. They caught him in contradictions and forced him to admit to lie after lie. Alex claimed he lied to police about being at the kennels because he was paranoid from drug use, not because he was guilty of murder. The jury didn't believe him. On March 2, 2023, after less than 3 hours of deliberation, the jury returned with their verdict: guilty on all counts. Alex Murdaugh was convicted of murdering his wife Maggie and his son Paul. The courtroom was silent as the verdict was read. Alex showed little emotion, staring straight ahead. The Beach family, Mallory's parents who had lost their daughter in the boat crash, sat in the courtroom with tears streaming down their faces. Justice at long last had been served, not just for Maggie and Paul, but for all of Alex's victims. Sentencing came the very next day. Judge Clifton Newman, who presided over the trial with dignity and fairness, sentenced Alex Murdaugh to 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. In his remarks, Judge Newman spoke directly to Alex, telling him that his crimes had brought shame to his family name, to to his profession and to his community. He noted that the Murdaugh name, which had been synonymous with justice in Hampton County for nearly a century, would now be forever associated with murder and betrayal. Alex was led away in handcuffs to begin his life in prison. But the story didn't end there. In the months following his conviction, additional details emerged about other suspicious deaths connected to the Murdaugh family. In 2015, Stephen Smith, a 19-year-old nursing student, was found dead on a rural road in Hampton County. His death was initially ruled a hit and run, but investigators had always been skeptical. Stephen's mother believed he had been murdered, and rumors swirled that members of the Murdaugh family were involved. After Alex's arrest, authorities reopened Stephen's case as a homicide investigation. As of 2024, that investigation remains ongoing with new evidence being examined. There was also renewed scrutiny of Gloria Satterfield's death, the housekeeper who allegedly fell down the stairs. No autopsy had been performed at the time, and no investigation was conducted beyond Alex's account of what happened. Her body was exhumed in 2021, and her death was reclassified as undetermined pending further investigation. Some believe she may have witnessed or discovered something about Alex's crimes, and that her death was not an accident at all. The Murdaugh family's fall from grace was complete and absolute. The law firm changed its name, removing the Murdaugh name entirely. The family's properties, including the Moselle estate where Maggie and Paul were murdered, were sold to pay restitution to victims. Alex's surviving son, Buster, has maintained his father's innocence publicly but has largely stayed out of the spotlight, trying to rebuild his life away from the scandal. The dynasty that ruled Hampton County for 3 generations ended not with honor, but with disgrace, murder, and betrayal. Today, Alex Murdaugh sits in a maximum security prison in South Carolina, serving 2 life sentences. He has filed appeals, claiming errors in his trial and continuing to maintain his innocence. Those appeals have been denied. He has also been sentenced to an additional 27 years in federal prison for his financial crimes, ensuring that even if he somehow overturned his murder convictions, he would still die behind bars. The Murdaugh case serves as a chilling reminder that power, wealth, and influence cannot protect you from the consequences of your actions forever. For decades, Alex Murdaugh manipulated the system, stole from the vulnerable, and believed he was untouchable. But the walls closed in, and when they did, he made the unthinkable choice to murder his own family. The evidence caught up with him. Justice, though delayed, was ultimately served. And the Murdaugh name, once synonymous with law and order in South Carolina, will now forever be remembered for one of the most shocking family murder cases in American history.